Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, another big development in the plans for a consumption site downtown. Plus, a home for Ukrainian families who fled the war. We'll bring you an update on the community project. The World Health Organization makes a decision on COVID-19. We'll tell you whether it's still considered a global health emergency. And vigils for Tyree Nichols. We'll bring you the latest on the situation out of Memphis. We begin tonight at City Hall. There have been concerns in the community that City Council would revoke its support for a drug consumption and treatment site in downtown Windsor. New developments late this afternoon have changed all of that for now. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa is at City Hall where she was covering today's meeting, and she's with us now live. Jen, things changed late this afternoon, so bring us up to speed.
So council did not end up discussing the drug consumption and treatment site after all. Today we were expecting to hear a motion from downtown Windsor Councillor Ronaldo Augustino, and he was going to ask the city to revoke its approval of the location of a drug consumption and treatment site. But the motion was not brought forward tonight. Instead, we were told that there will be a compromise. So a new motion is going to be heading to the next council meeting. I spoke with Augustino shortly after tonight's meeting, and he said that they're looking at having the consumption site open in that approved location, so the intersection of Wyandotte and Goyo, but he wants to move it to a different location afterwards.
Jen, people are very passionate about this issue, so how are folks reacting right now?
So there was a lot of disappointment and frustration today, Kat. Dozens of people were outside of Windsor City Hall today just before this meeting started, and they were rallying, a lot of them holding signs saying that, addiction is not a choice. People are going to die. We can't wait. And these people were expected to hold a silent protest inside of City Hall tonight, but they did not get the chance to do that. When Augustino gave notice of his motion late last week, many people rallied together in the community to advocate against it. The Windsor-Essex County Health Unit had submitted a 300-page report for tonight, really showing the work that it's done to get to this point over the last 6 years. They've done a number of community consultations and presentations to City Council to get here. So the last page of that report actually shows a graph, and it projects that without this sort of service, the number of people dying from opioids could nearly double to 157 in 2026. Throughout this process, they've really said, this is one piece of the puzzle to help the community through this crisis. Those I spoke with outside of the rally today said that, people are dying every day and the city can't wait.
People are trying to back out of it at the last minute. It's just not right for everybody concerned. Not for the taxpayers, not for the people who need this site. People are going to die in the process.
This site's almost ready to go in March, and so it makes no sense to not go through with it. Tax dollars have already been spent on this location. We need to move through with it. If they feel like the location's not good, we need to just try it out. And if it's proven to not be good, we can move it later. But there's no reason why lives need to be lost for this because of a location issue.
Now, last week, the health unit said that the site at 101 Wyandotte Street East was mid-renovation and that their applications were waiting approval from the provincial and the federal governments. And all of this is happening as the opioid crisis is happening in our community and impacting people. Just today, the health unit issued an opioid overdose alert, warning that 11 overdose emergency department visits were recorded last week and that there were 15 substance misuse emergency department visits over the weekend. I spoke with people who were here to speak on the issue today as they were leaving because that issue wasn't being discussed. And they said that this seems hopeful, but they're also skeptical. They don't really know what this means for the future of the site. They plan to keep advocating for this issue. And over the weekend, we had a group of over 24 faith leaders in the community write a letter of support saying that this service shouldn't be delayed.
Tragically, we've had people die within 10 meters of where we're standing right now of an opioid overdose that could have been prevented with the services that are being proposed at the approved site. We have every night people who take up residence in this park and around All Saints Church.
And so, Kat, again, I just want to summarize what happened here tonight. No decision was made. The councillor who brought that motion forward said that there is going to be a compromise. He wants the site to open at that approved location. And then after that, they're going to go look at other location options. But we'll really have to wait and see what comes out of the next council meeting. Kat.
We'll definitely be following this. Thanks for this, Jen. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa reporting live from City Hall tonight. Ukrainian families who fled the war will soon be able to move into a multi-story house in Cottam. It's a story we first told you about in June, and now organizers of the community project say it is nearly finished. The CBC's TJ Deer has more.
It's a two-car garage, and we can kind of go inside.
The house has 2 units for 2 families, one on each floor. One of those families will be moving in as early as March 1st. It's called the Kyiv Home Project, and it's located in a new subdivision in Cottam. The project spokesperson says her father was the inspiration behind the project.
He saw the Ukrainian women and children that were basically fleeing, suitcases in hand, nothing and nowhere to go. And he saw that in his own children, he would never want us to go through something like that.
Support from the community has been overwhelming. Kingsville's town council unanimously approved a motion in June to waive all development charges. Baggio says that by itself, the project will cost $1 million, but organizers are hoping to build it for only $250,000.
We don't actually know what it's costing us because of how much the community and different partners that we've working with have been able to donate their time and their supplies. So it's pretty overwhelming, the support.
One of those partners is the Cottam United Church. The pastor says the goal of the house is to be a transitional residence.
Transitional housing means that they come here, we set them up, we get them established, and get them to be independent so they can find jobs, find doctors, whatever they need. We help them do all those sorts of things, but then they become independent.
Gilliland says that once a family can support themselves, a new family will take their place. The families will have to pay rent, and although Gilliland doesn't know what it'll be yet, he says it will be affordable and based on their income. Gilliland also says it feels good to be a part of a project that helps out others.
For me, the most amazing thing is how it's brought together people who previously didn't know each other. People come up to me and say, yeah, I heard about this and I want to help to be part of it. What can we do? And well, there's so many things to do. It's just the whole community is coming together over this.
TJ Deer, CBC News, Cottam.
High interest rates are directly connected to rental availability that's hit an all-time low. That's according to a Windsor realtor. A new report out this month says that in addition to low availability, rent has continued to spike.
Rental market and the price per month to rent these homes has gone up so much over the past few years that these tenants that have been in there will not leave, right? So that's a huge factor of our rental market, is that the current tenants in those houses, they're not leaving, right? Because they know if they leave, their rents are going to go up 50, sometimes 100%. That's why we're seeing a huge demand put on the rental market as well.
Ultimately, he says fewer people are able to get a mortgage now that interest rates have gone up, so renting is the only option in some cases. The new report says the average 2-bedroom rental unit in Windsor is nearly $1,200, up 3.9% compared to 2021. Germanese says once interest rates stabilize and eventually go down, that's when we'll see more availability in the rental market. The World Health Organization says COVID-19 remains a global health emergency, and it's keeping its international alarm at the highest level. The head of the WHO says while the pandemic isn't as dire as earlier, there's still more work to do to protect at-risk groups.
As we enter the 4th year of the pandemic, there is no doubt we're in a far better situation now than we were a year ago. We can't control the virus, but we can do more to address the vulnerabilities in populations and health systems.
There are new appeals for political action in the United States over the death of Tyree Nichols. A public funeral will be held this week for Nichols, who died after he was beaten by Memphis police officers. The release of video showing the violent arrest is bringing fresh calls for a national conversation on race and policing.
We come to call to action for Congress. By failing to craft and pass bills to stop police brutality, you are writing another black man's obituary. The blood of Black America is on your hand. So stand up and do something.
Among the many tributes and vigils for Tyree Nichols this week, there was this one at a skate park in his hometown. His family says Nichols was a devoted skateboarder, and his mother is trying to raise money online to build a park in his memory. His parents have been asked to come to the White House to speak with U.S. President Joe Biden, and the Congressional Black Caucus is calling for talks with Biden this week. Cameron McIntosh has more.
No justice! No peace.
This is what Tyree Nichols' family called for.
No justice!
Peaceful, purposeful protest.
Say his name!
In what their lawyer calls a watershed moment.
We have to have a larger conversation about this.
About a culture, he says, enabled 5 police officers to beat Tyree Nichols during a traffic stop. This video, released Friday, is enraging the country. CBC News has decided not to show the worst of it. The Memphis Street Crime Unit all 5 officers belong to is now disbanded.
My concern going forward is to make sure we don't create another unit just call it something else.
All 5 officers, who are also black, are now charged with second-degree murder. Civil rights lawyer Ben Crump says this case reveals a system that justifies excessive force against racialized communities.
It doesn't matter whether the police officers are black, Hispanic, or white, that it is somehow allowed for you to trample on the constitutional rights of certain citizens.
After George Floyd's murder in 2020, Congress failed to agree to reform policing standards on use of force and racial bias. President Biden's 2021 reform bill in Floyd's name failed to get bipartisan support. Nichols' death is now prompting new calls for change.
Banning chokeholds, dealing with no warrant searches, dealing with accreditation of police departments. It's necessary that we do all these things.
I want to say loud and clear that we will fight black cops, white cops, any color cops that commit crimes against us.
President Biden says he will push his George Floyd bill again, hoping the near universal outrage here gets it passed. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Washington.
A bomb exploded today at a mosque in northern Pakistan, killing at least 59 people. The blast happened during afternoon prayers, and most of the victims were police officers. Salima Shivji has more.
A stunned silence as the grief sets in for the dozens of injured. Victim after victim rushed to hospital in Peshawar, in Pakistan's northwest. As the search for survivors became more frantic. Nearly 60 worshippers dead, with the toll expected to rise. The suspected suicide attack was timed to hit a packed Shia mosque, shattering the tranquility of afternoon prayers, ripping through a wall and bringing down parts of the roof. We were preparing for prayer, this man says. We were on the stairs when the blast hit inside. He and others rushed to rescue the wounded, leaving many behind, already dead, trapped under the rubble. We took out 7 injured worshippers, this social worker says, but 2 died on the way to the hospital. Most of the victims were officers, hundreds working inside a highly secure compound that was somehow compromised. Within hours, Pakistan's prime minister met with survivors of the blast, calling the scale of the tragedy unimaginable. An attack on Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif called it. Terrorism is our foremost national security challenge, he wrote on Twitter. An increasingly unwieldy challenge. Peshawar, tucked near the border with Afghanistan, has seen its share of militant attacks, and even more so recently. There's been a surge after a ceasefire between the Pakistani Taliban and government forces crumbled. A security situation that's rapidly deteriorating, leaving those in mourning also searching for answers as they bury their dead. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
Back to Canada now. It's becoming a familiar scene, growing piles of lost luggage in our nation's airports. Sophia Harris looks at the problem and what's being done about it.
I feel extremely angry.
Deborah Cleary was exasperated after waiting more than a month for her suitcase. It disappeared when flying from Italy back to Montreal on Air Canada. 2 weeks ago, Cleary returned to the Montreal airport to search again.
There were just bags that were piling up and piling up.
But hers was still nowhere to be found.
I'm just sort of desperate to get my bag back.
Baggage problems first emerged in the summer. The airlines blamed staffing shortages. Then in December, the cause was massive winter storms disrupting flights.
Delays equal missing bags.
This former Air Canada executive says Ottawa needs to provide more funding to help keep airport operations running smoothly.
There's obviously a need for better infrastructure, better resources for airports to make them more resilient to these weather events.
There's also the problem of locating missing bags.
We zoomed in on Google Maps, and it is a public storage facility.
Nikita Reese was able to track the whereabouts of her husband's missing suitcase thanks to an AirTag tracker inside the bag. Even so, Air Canada declared the luggage lost.
The most frustrating thing about it was we had no way of getting it. Even though we knew the location and we told the airline so many times. My bag!
She finally got the bag back last week, more than 4 months after it had disappeared during a flight home from Greece.
Minister Algabra.
The transport minister says airlines need to step up their game.
It's frustrating that airlines still have not modernized their luggage handling system.
Air Canada says its baggage operations have returned to normal and that Reese got $2,300 compensation. Following a CBC News inquiry to Air Canada, Cleary also got her suitcase back.
It's just been a series of frustrations.
Ottawa says it's beefing up its air passenger rights regulations, which may include new rules for missing baggage. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
Live look outside there at the Ambassador Bridge. A small chance rather of some flurries for this evening, but we have some good news. We have sunshine on the way for tomorrow. Your weather forecast is coming up right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. It is time now for a look at our local weather forecast, and for that we have Kim McDonald with a look ahead.
Katerina, if you've put away that big heavy coat, you have to pull it out, and I mean immediately. Temperatures are going to be dropping this week, and it will be far colder in the overnight hours and tomorrow morning than we've felt in quite some time. Last year, I know it's January, okay, that's not dramatic. So we had a little bit of light snow, a little bit of cloud cover, but when we have clear skies, and these skies will be clear, we tend to have colder days and certainly colder nights. So the cloud cover helps to keep a little bit of the heat in, certainly helping areas around the GTA. You've got the mildish lake water, so that's helping as well. But we're not seeing that. Windsor, Chatham, it's going to be cold. So normal daytime highs. So this is for the 31st, the last day in January, about 0.9 degrees, minus 0.9, so just around that freezing mark. But we're looking at a forecast high of -9. If there's anything good here, we're noticing that the sun is setting a little bit later, 5:43 p.m. I will take it. That's not so bad. However, you're not going to want to be outside for any real length of time. This is the overnight, -19 through the overnight, -18 in Chatham. The last time we had a temperature even close to this was back on December the 23rd. It was -17.6. So that was the coldest air we've had this winter so far. Now we're going to get into even colder air. And not only that, it's going to feel colder with the wind chill. So we have the polar vortex. It is sliding south. Certainly southwestern Ontario not getting the worst of this cold. That will be for Ottawa and Montreal, but cold enough. So there's Tuesday morning, -18 in Windsor, -17 in Chatham. Let's go to the wind chill. It will feel like -25 to start the day. Yeah, not very mild. -9 for the afternoon. We've got some recovery, which is great. And here's our long range forecast. Friday, a daytime high of -10.
And when we come back, an update on the Windsor driver who took part in a 24-hour race in Daytona. We'll let you know how he did after the break. Stay with us. The federal parliament is back in session. MPs are in Ottawa after a 6-week break. Healthcare seems to be top of the agenda. The Prime Minister is meeting with the premiers next week. The leader of the NDP today said he's concerned about the push from some premiers to allow private companies to deliver more services.
In the last election, the Prime Minister made a really big deal of calling out the Conservatives for proposing the idea of bringing in more for-profit, private healthcare. But now when Doug Ford is doing exactly that, he's calling it innovation.
We will ensure that the Canada Health Act is fully respected. In the past, this government has pulled back money from provinces that haven't respected it. We will continue to do that.
The Premier said today they want Ottawa to increase healthcare transfers by 13%. People are paying their respects to a longtime Ontario mayor known as Hurricane Hazel. Hazel McCallion died yesterday at the age of 101. She was Mississauga's mayor from 1978 to 2014. Plans for a private funeral are in the works. Jamie Strachan has more on the legacy she left behind.
Hazel McCallion defied convention. Never the typical politician, her impact on Canadian politics was deep.
In my opinion, she passed too young. She was 101, but she had the vision of a 20-year-old.
Known as Hurricane Hazel, after the storm that hit Ontario in 1954, it became a nickname she lived by.
People say, naming you after a disaster? And I said, well, also a hurricane moves things as well.
McCallion was first elected mayor of Mississauga in 1978.
My campaign has been a mayor for the people of Mississauga.
Less than a year later, a train derailment threatened the city with toxic chemicals, and she spearheaded what was then the largest evacuation in North American history.
Working on you.
She was elected a remarkable 12 times, never seriously opposed.
She had this incredible ability to feel the public pulse, to get in front of a parade even before it formed.
Over her decades in office, her counsel and support was sought by politicians of all stripes.
99% of the time she was bang on, and she'd give you the reasons why she's giving you the advice.
She was comfortable crossing political lines, supporting the Premier's brother Rob during his controversial time as mayor.
Good morning, everybody.
And in 2015, endorsing then Liberal leader Justin Trudeau before he won a majority government.
She has been such a presence in Mississauga, across Ontario and across Canada for so many years. She will be deeply missed.
Her lengthy tenure wasn't without controversy. She was blamed for promoting urban sprawl and accused of conflicts of interest for land deals involving her family. But for most voters, none of it mattered. McCallion was the consummate retail politician, attending thousands of events with no entourage or fanfare, remaining deeply engaged in the civic life of the city she loved right up until her death. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
An update now on a Windsor driver who was racing at this weekend's 24 Hours of Daytona. Roman DeAngelis won the event. DeAngelis was racing in the amateur GT class, which requires at least one lower-rated driver to race. One of DeAngelis' teammates took the car across the finish line 2.3 seconds ahead of the next best GT car. He and his teammates were the first team in either GT class to finish the race ahead of other teams, which even featured all-pro lineups. And that is it for CBC Windsor News. For more, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks for watching and have a great night.